welcome Amanda to Garage Talks in Arvada, Colorado. Thanks for walking all the way over to my house.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's so funny.
For having me.
I've known you a few years and I didn't know. I knew you lived in Arvada, but I didn't realize you were like 10-minute walk from here.
Right? Yeah, it's kind of fun.
That's awesome.
I'll have to come bug you.
Yeah, right? Now you know where I'm at. The studios of 303 here is pretty fancy, right?
It's impressive.
Right? Minus 2 bikes that got stolen a couple weeks ago, which is a drag.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So this garage is a little bit tainted right now.
Uh-oh.
But thanks for coming. It was great to see you last week at the Last Call Triathlon.
I had fun. That was my first time doing that race, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What'd you like about it?
I like the scenery. I mean, being able to just be in a park and just bike through the park and not... I mean, there are a couple cars here and there, but not like highway traffic.
Nice to be out of Boulder for a change, maybe?
Yeah.
Something different?
Yeah. It was nice, though. Saw a lot of friends and teammates and stuff, which is always fun.
So talk about your team real quick. You're on the base team.
I am.
And
yes.
How long have you been on that team?
This year.
Just this year? Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I swore. I thought you were on it the whole...
Mm-mm. I'm wearing an older kit, but
okay.
But yeah, just this year.
What made you jump on the team?
Honestly, I don't really remember exactly. I just know that Matt Miller and I started talking while I was living in Georgia, and he's like, "Yeah, you should totally join my team." And so I started getting info from him, and so yeah, I'm really excited to.
That's funny.
Be on it for it's kind of like half a season this year,
right.
But so I'm really excited to be like full season next year. And
cool. Have you what's happened with it? How's that helped you?
Honestly, I think just like I go to races by myself. I don't have a significant other. I don't have my parents don't go to stuff like that. It's kind of hard. I know there's a lot of people who have great Sherpas, and I think that's amazing, but...
now you got 500 Sherpas, or maybe it's more like 1,200.
My parents are 65, so it's harder for them to go out there and be out in the sun all day while I'm racing, and they might see me once or twice.
Okay. They don't... Do they live here?
They do, yeah.
Okay.
They're maybe a 20-minute walk from you.
So you grew up here?
Yeah, I did.
And where'd you go to high school?
Pomona. I don't know why I had to think about that. But
why did you have to think about that?
I don't know.
I went to Wheat Ridge, so we're rivals, sort of, kind of. I'm a little bit older than you, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to chat with you because we talked a little bit at Last Call Triathlon, and you mentioned how you've lost how many pounds?
I should have weighed myself this morning.
Well, roughly?
I am at like about 85 pounds dropped since about April of 2020 is when I really started. Wow. I mean, I've been trying to lose weight pretty much my entire adult life, and even like high school life, but things are finally clicking.
85 pounds in over just a year and a half, basically. Mm-hmm. How did you do that?
Honestly, Beachbody's been a huge tool for me. Okay. Just using one of their very easy, not the one where you portion control and weigh everything, but you just like fill your plate in certain, like a pie kind of. You fill it.
So you're more conscious of what you're eating, basically.
And I also, through the pandemic, because there was so much that happened last year, I actually moved to Georgia, and 2 weeks after moving there, I was in ICU with COVID.
Really?
By myself, no family or friends. And so I really struggled, not just physically, but mentally too. And then a lot of employers were offering extra help or really trying to push employees to seek mental support through such an uncertain time. And so I did, and I was doing Zoom calls with a counselor therapist, and we just started talking about like a lot of issues, not just COVID and having just relocated. And she actually was the one who was able to identify that I've been struggling with binge eating disorder for probably my entire life. Really?
So, meaning what? You get up in the middle of the night and just eat a ton of food, or?
Not necessarily like waking up. Like, it's very emotional based. It's trauma based. I've had a lot of trauma. I'm adopted. Okay. And I just never recognized that was a problem. Like, I knew I overate, but I didn't think that it was an actual eating disorder. Right. So she really gave me the tools to identify when I might binge. And you really kind of just go on autopilot. I don't realize that I'm doing it until an entire pint of ice cream is gone, or an entire bag of chips is gone, or something. And then you come to and you realize, like, oh my God, I just ate all that and that was not healthy. And then you feel worse. And then it's just a cycle. It's terrible. And so half the time I wasn't really aware that I was doing it. So she really taught me how to be way more conscious of my actions and listening to my body and really asking myself, are you really hungry?
Yeah.
Do you really need this, or is this maybe an emotional trigger?
Interesting.
And so I really worked really hard through the pandemic. Being able to work from home really helped. Yeah. In some ways. In other ways, it was kind of hard because, like, the kitchen was there 24/7.
Right. I know, right? I work from home. It is.
Yeah.
It's easy to go grab a cracker or a handful of chips or.
Exactly. Yeah. So I really feel like I occasionally will fall off the wagon and I have a binge, but I'm a lot more conscious of it and able to reel myself back in and get myself back on track a lot faster before it becomes like catastrophic again.
Well, it must be, as you lose that kind of weight, you've got to, it must feel like an accomplishment every day. So that must be addicting a little bit too.
I'm officially at a weight that I've never been in my entire adult life.
Really?
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. Like, I have to buy a whole new wardrobe.
Is it exciting?
It is exciting, but also sometimes, like, I wake up and I look in the mirror and I, like, don't recognize myself.
Really?
I'm like, this is me? Like, really?
Okay, so wait, time out. So, because we met, how many, probably 4 or 5 years ago, because you came to a couple of the Ironman spin classes that I was doing.
Yes, when I was training for Ironman Boulder 2018.
Right. Was it 2018? Okay.
I DNF'd to that one.
Yeah.
Maybe I went to some for 2017 half. Possibly.
Maybe. I think that's actually more, because I don't remember. Anyway. But I met you a few years ago, and you were in this journey to do a full, and you didn't accomplish that journey.
No.
Is that still on your radar?
I'm actually training right now for Ironman Florida.
Okay.
It's in 5 weeks.
Oh, this year?
This year.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why my hair's wet.
Because you got back to the swimming.
I just got done swimming, yeah.
Oh, good for you.
Thank you.
So let's reverse back a number of years, and you had a post the other day that it was your Clodiversary.
Yes.
Talk about that.
So I got into triathlon in 2009.
Okay.
And I really did it. It was half selfish and half for a friend. I had a college friend, Kalila Borden, who was fighting her life with leukemia.
Okay.
A very rare form of leukemia too. So her prognosis was very grim.
Okay.
And I, again, I'm trying to lose weight my whole life. So I was like, I need to be active. And I was done with college, and I found Teams in Training that they fundraise for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
Right.
So I looked at the options that they had, and back then they only had like 4 options, and one of them was triathlon, and I didn't know what that was. I had to Google it.
You really didn't know?
I really didn't know.
Wow.
And I was torn between, I remember seeing like Kona on TV, but I don't think I realized that was a triathlon.
Okay.
So I was torn between doing the biking or the running, and then I Googled triathlon and was like, oh, look, it's both and swimming. And I love swimming.
So you did swim?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, yeah, let's do that. So I signed up for my first triathlon and fundraised in honor of my friend. Okay. And that was Oktoberfest, actually. So that was my very first race I've ever done.
I was up in Boulder.
Or Longmont. Yeah, Longmont, Union Reservoir. Yep. And ended up having double plantar fasciitis the day of the race, and I was crying for the whole 5K, and I just kept telling myself, I'm like, if she can fight all this, then I can do a 5K. I'm okay.
That's a tough injury. I've had it.
It hurts. It sucks. Knock on wood. It does not ever come back.
That's how I got into cycling.
Really?
Because I used to run, and I used to be into other sports. As you look around, you can probably imagine.
Yeah, you have a lot of equipment here.
And I couldn't play anymore. I was playing Ultimate quite a bit.
Okay.
And I got plantar, and I started, oh my gosh, what can I do? So I really got into cycling because I could ride my bike easily.
Yeah, it was the running that really hurt, or rather walking.
Yeah.
I couldn't even run. Everybody was so supportive, and I wore the Teams in Training jersey, and I had her name on the back, and people would, do their little walk break with me and stuff. So I ended up giving her the jersey, and I think it was a week later she had passed away.
Oh, wow.
So that race has a special place in my heart for me. And
Sure.
then fast forward to the following year, I actually was strongest on the bike then that season.
Okay. You seem
Didn't
surprised.
really know what I was doing though, but yeah, I would pass people on the bike, and now like I struggle. I'm getting stronger on the bike, but that's not my forte.
Okay.
So I signed up for Ride the Rockies in 2010, and I
Yep.
won the lottery and didn't have a clue what I was doing. Didn't really train, but I successfully cycled every one of those miles. But on the day 6, I think it was, climbing these mountain passes, I got some signal and I called my mom in tears, and I was like, my calves hurt so bad, and she was just like, duh, look at what you're doing.
Right?
Like, we'll see.
I have a feeling
tomorrow.
I know where this is going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So I finished that, and then a couple months go by, and like my calves don't get better. I just randomly would take a step and I would fall to the ground. So, like, my calves would just completely seize and give out.
Wow.
I had started a new job, so I didn't have health insurance yet, and I was just putting it off, and ironically was working in an emergency room. So
Okay.
I would have some friends that would unofficially look at them, and they're like, yeah, you probably just strained a muscle. I mean, you're really active. So I just sat there at the desk and would just like massage my calves, which, if you have blood clots, is the absolute worst thing you could do for a blood clot.
Yep. Because you'll throw that clot.
That's exactly what I did. Is I broke up those clots in both of my legs, just sent them to my heart and my lungs.
So we had DVT.
I had DVTs. Yes.
Yeah.
And by the time, so September 26, 2010 rolled around, my insurance would be active October 1st, 2010.
Okay.
5 days away from my insurance becoming active. I actually had started playing soccer with my best friend.
Okay.
And it was our first or second game of the season. She's a nurse, so she actually was not there that game because she had to work that weekend.
Okay.
And I kept collapsing, like passing out on the field.
Oh my gosh.
So within like just seconds, minutes maybe, of the ball hitting the ground at the beginning of the game, I was a forward, and the team passed me the ball, and I sprinted towards it, and I don't think I ever made contact with the ball. And I woke up on the sideline.
Okay, so you have you run towards the ball, and then what? Did you just black out?
I remember feeling my chest was super heavy, and I remember that my vision just started to tunnel.
Wow.
And then I woke up on the sidelines.
You woke up on the sidelines.
Yep. I don't remember how I got to the sideline. I'm sure the team like pulled me over. I don't know.
Wow.
I do have exercise-induced asthma.
Okay.
And I thought, I've never had an asthma attack. I had a friend in elementary school that had them, and I was like, maybe that's what this is. I don't know. So I started sucking down on my Ventolin inhaler, trying to get the albuterol in me, and seemed okay, like, because I was sitting. I wasn't exerting myself. So I sat there for the whole first half, and then the second half I was like, I think I'm okay. So I go back in.
Oh my God. And meanwhile, your lungs probably have all kinds of clots in them, right?
Yeah, I had no clue.
Yeah.
So I sprinted to the ball again, and this time, like, my symptoms were like tenfold, if not more.
Wow.
And it felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest. I could not breathe. And just the vision tunneling, and even the second time, the hearing, everything sounded like it was getting further and further away. And I remember just like going down, and then again waking up on the sidelines. Like,
Not at the ER yet.
Not at the ER yet. No, I'm a very stubborn person. You ask my parents, they'll tell you that. Since I didn't have insurance, I waited till the end of the game, and I had multiple calls to my parents trying to figure out what I was going to do.
Yeah.
So I decided I would just drive myself home. I was probably I was living in Littleton at the time. My parents live here in Arvada.
Okay.
And the game was probably like an hour and a half south of Littleton.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, I want to try and get closer to home, to my parents. So I stubbornly get up after the game, and I start walking across a residential street. And by the time I crossed very, like an 80-year-old woman probably, pace, got to my car, and I felt the symptoms coming again, and I could barely get my key in the door. I was back before we had a keyless entry. I remember just kind of sliding into the seat, and I think once I got off my feet, I didn't lose consciousness that time, but I think I was very close to.
Did you drive home?
No, I did.
Really?
I actually didn't drive home. I
drove
towards home.
Okay.
And the whole way I was like looking for urgent cares.
Oh, okay.
And I knew where there was an urgent care really close to me. And I was like, if I can get to that urgent care, I'll be okay. And I was like, they're probably just going to give me a neb treatment and then I'll go home and it'll be fine.
Wow.
I walk into the urgent care in my soccer uniform and told them that I was very short of breath. And at the time, like for me to talk, I would have to breathe after every syllable because I was so short of breath.
Wow.
So they tried a couple nebulizer treatments. They don't have the equipment to be able to do chest scans or x-rays or anything like that. So they took my keys. So they were going to call an ambulance.
Yep.
And I should go to the ER to rule out a blood clot. But he's like, I don't think that's what you have, but we need to be on the safe side.
Right.
And I wonder if he just told me that so I didn't freak out, or if he really didn't think that I did. So I, again, very stubborn, was like, no, I don't have insurance. I'm not paying for an ambulance.
Because the money's just in your head going bling, bling.
Yes, like I already paid for the urgent care out of pocket. Like, I can't imagine ER. And then if they admit me, like I was just, I couldn't. So I sat there, I think about an hour and waited for my dad to come pick me up. And he drove me to Littleton Adventist Hospital.
Yep.
And as soon as we got there, one of the ER techs yelled to the back, our chest pain patient is here. And they literally scooped me up in a wheelchair and like hauled me back like stat. And I just remember looking back like, my dad is parking the car. And they're like,
wait for Dad.
We'll get him.
He'll push us, save some more money.
Yeah, they're like, we'll get him. Don't worry. We need to get you back now. And I was just, I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Wow.
So.
And then what? Okay, so they determine you have these clots. And they're in your lungs.
Mm-hmm. So it turns out I had massive bilateral, meaning both sides, pulmonary embolisms, which are blood clots in the lungs.
Yep.
And they actually told me that both of my lungs were over 90% clotted off.
Wow.
The doctor looked at me after I did get admitted, and he said, you're my famous patient. And I didn't understand why he was saying that. And he's like, A, I don't get people your age on my floor very often, and B, you should be dead.
Yeah, 90%. You're not, and you're probably, you said this is the lightest you've been as an adult, so you were heavier then.
It was definitely heavier then.
So that
I
probably...
was probably in the 190s, maybe just over 200 back then.
So that couldn't have helped.
Nope, that
because
increases
that's a lot
your
of
risk.
Yeah, more blood circulation, whatever. How in the world are you sitting here? I mean, seriously, like how did you resolve that?
So the doctors did tell me while I was there as an ICU for 5 days, ironically, the 5 days I did not have health insurance.
Right. Oh my God. I don't even want to talk about that. That's probably scary.
No. So the doctor actually did tell me that I could, he did extensive background history, told him I was adopted, so they ran genetic testing because I don't know my biological history.
Yep.
And we talked about how I just recently started getting active a year prior, maybe a year and a half prior, because you start training, But and all the doctors were in the same consensus that I was alive because I had strengthened my heart by training for endurance, and that was the only reason that my heart hadn't given out yet.
So did you have clot? You didn't have a clot in your heart though, right?
Well, so with anatomy, in order for them to go through the
through your
lungs,
heart.
it has to go through the heart.
Yeah.
So every single one of those went through
That's
my
true.
heart. And it actually did suffer some heart damage.
Okay.
They even have it on my medical records that I did have a heart attack.
Oh.
And when I went in there, like, my T waves were flipped, which
and this is
doesn't
how
mean
old?
a lot
What's
to
your
me.
age?
I was 26 when this happened.
Wow.
Yes.
So is that genetic? Is there a lot of genetic component of that?
So my genetic panel testing did come back positive for factor V Leiden. So they're a clotting cascade with your blood. There's many different factors, and they're all a genetic factor. So one of mine, I have one copy gene of factor V that is mutated.
Okay.
And so they call that mutation factor V Leiden, and of course named after the scientist that discovered it.
Okay.
And it basically is like child's book version that a doctor once explained to me was, if you have a factory and all of your blood is like all the factory workers, activated protein C is part of the clotting cascade and is kind of like the big boss, and comes in there and says, everybody go to work, there's an injury, you have to go, you know, make a clot to patch this injury so it can heal. And then factor V rather, comes in and says, okay, job's done, go home.
And it's not done.
No, but factor V Leiden makes it so that they don't stop working.
Sorry about that. That's all right. We have a cat visitor at the garage talk. You never know what's going to happen at garage talks.
I'm Cephas.
Yeah.
So since I have one mutated copy, half of my workers will go home when the job is done, and the other half do not. And they stay and work overtime, and they just keep creating clots in excess, which become life-threatening.
So how do you deal with that on a daily basis?
I am on lifelong blood thinners, anticoagulant therapy.
So how does that... Okay, so I did interview somebody once that had a similar situation. He was about... basically double your age, and when he discovered it, Tom Miller, and he talked about that same pain. It was behind his knee, and he was really a Strava junkie, or is a Strava junkie, and he does these huge rides. He's part of the Rocky Mountain Cycling Club, these 200-mile type rides. Yeah. But he kept noticing his Strava data was, dropping. They couldn't figure out why, and his fatigue level was dropping. So he. Similar thing though, and he was on blood thinners, and I think he might be off them. Sounds like yours is a little bit different.
Since I have the genetic factor, and I have since that episode of clotting, which really was like multiple clots, but since then I've clotted multiple times, and typically they'll put you on anticoagulant therapy for about maybe 6 months. Yeah. And then they, depending on your doctor and your risk factors, they may try to take you off and see how you do. But within those 6 months, I had actually clotted again while quote unquote therapeutic. So, they realized that my body is very aggressive with clotting. And, back then I had way more, risk factors, including being overweight is a risk factor. Sure. Being female, if you are taking any kind of estrogen, birth control, that also is a risk factor. Okay. So
COVID must have been terrifying, because your lungs must be compromised a little bit, or scarred at least, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of damage in my veins, like in my legs and stuff, and at one point I'd have to go back to a pulmonologist to do extensive testing to find out, and I just don't see the value in it at this point in my life. But at one point in the beginning, I did have a lower portion of my lung was necrotic because there was no oxygen getting to that area. Right. But they do say that after so many years, depending on the organ, that they can regenerate or get better. But, I seem to do okay training and stuff. So
how in the world? Okay, so we know about Tim O'Donnell, who had a heart attack while riding at Miami Triathlon this year. So he had a heart attack on the bike, and he finished the race, believe it or not. But he has clotting. He had a clot issue, and that caused the heart attack. I think that's I think that's right. So it's a very uncommon thing. But how do you go do Ironman for? How do you even do Ironman? How do you do that kind of exertion on your body with that kind of a background?
With my medical history, I've learned to be very hyper aware of my body. Growing up as a kid, I probably was throwing clots as a kid, talking with my hematologist back when this all started. And my parents, bless their hearts, would say, you're just a hypochondriac. Right. And I probably was to an extent, so I'll give them that. But
but you had real issues, probably.
With reason, I think. I remember standing on the stair at a young, probably elementary school age, and stopping because I was going down the stairs and telling my mom, my chest hurts, I feel like I can't breathe. And I really wonder, that one particular moment really stands out to me, and I wonder did I just throw a clot then? Right. And at that young age, I could tell something wasn't right. But who would look at their, maybe 8, 9, 10-year-old kid and think, who otherwise looks perfectly healthy, that something might be wrong? Right. And they would just be out of the blue too, like that. Like wasn't running, I was just going down the stairs.
But like, what's the size of a clot? I mean, like...
They can vary. They could be little, like very little, where like the size of your vein, like if you think of a straw, it would just be like a little pebble inside the straw.
Right.
I've had a clot in my, a DVT.
Yep.
That was 100% included. So it completely clotted off that entire vein, and I wasn't getting blood flow out of my foot.
So I mean, I can assume
So
that a
they
small clot
vary.
you can work through, right?
Yeah, sometimes you might not even feel it, depending on the size. But again, that's that hypervigilance, just being super aware. My mom would joke that I'm Princess in the Pee. I would feel the pee under 20,000 mattresses. Right. So a big part, one of the ammos that I have in my back pocket is if I do start feeling symptoms, because anxiety can mimic a lot of blood, like PE type symptoms, right. The shortness of breath, the chest tightening, the heaviness. So in the beginning, I was going to the emergency room often thinking that I've clotted again. And sometimes I did, and other times I hadn't. Now I have the ability to test my blood levels at home. I made the investment to purchase my own meter. Okay. And I can test my levels. So a lot of times if I start feeling pain, the first thing that I do is I go test my level. If my level is in my normal range, then that helps me walk through it and be like reassess. Okay, chances of me having a blood clot at this level are slim to none, so I'm probably fine.
You can just relax a little bit.
Yeah, try to calm myself down, and let's think of another solution. I am very active, so maybe I need to do some more foam rolling, or maybe I need to go see a specialist and get some fascia tissue like really worked out. Depending, I don't do that often, but just being very aware. And then, of course, if I test it and my blood levels are low, then I might reassess, and maybe it is worth a trip to the emergency room.
What do they do, though?
All they would do is usually just an ultrasound.
Just to make sure.
If it's in my legs, yes, to confirm whether or not there is one. Okay. If I'm having any kind of shortness of breath symptoms, they may do a chest scan. Okay. But otherwise, if it's usually like, I will notice them developing. They usually develop in the legs first, and then they will break away and travel. So if I can catch them in my legs, then I can be more careful with what I do. I won't massage.
But you have to let them go somewhere. Do they just dissipate over time, or how?
So the blood thinners, being therapeutic, will allow my body to break them down and reabsorb them into the system. Okay. As long as I'm therapeutic. If I'm sub-therapeutic where my levels are too low, then my body will just continue to create those clots, and it'll get bigger and worse and then potentially life-threatening.
But what do you do? I mean, you can't... I mean, how do you... You just keep adding thinner to your...
You can't go...
You can only go so far.
If you go super therapeutic, then you can start having bleeding issues. Right. And I've been on that far end of the spectrum too, and that's not good either. So you get a lot of bruises. You can actually have internal bleeding if you're too high. Right. So you really have to be right in that range.
You can't take them out. They have to be reabsorbed in some way.
So there are extreme methods that they can do for intervention. They can go in there, and they have like clot busters that they can go and really like almost like roto-rooter your veins and try to get them out. I am fortunate enough that my body has been able to compensate. If we get me therapeutic, my body does get rid of them pretty quickly. Yeah. But as I age, that's going to be harder on my body to get rid of them in a timely manner. I know people who have had surgery where they've gone and actually taken out clots that are long. Like they can be the entire length of your veins.
So you have this threat always there.
Always. Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
And yet you're training for an Ironman in 5 weeks. I think that's just such a... The spectrum seems so huge there. I mean, I commend you, of course. And
thank you.
That must be terrifying yet exciting at the same time.
It is. And I'm getting to the point in my training where, I'm at the peak of my training. And so... I am tired. Mm-hmm. Everything is sore to an extent. I mean, it's not bad, but I do have to be extra aware right now because now is when things could go wrong.
So is your taper maybe different than somebody else's? The same? Everything else similar?
I do have a really awesome coach.
Yeah.
I just try to be very straightforward with her and give her as much information as I can about how the workout went.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do have a lot of vein damage, I actually am dealing with cramping.
Oh.
I didn't used to, and I actually, after Boulder 2018, I took the rest of 2018 off because I DNF'd. I had bunions, very bad.
Oof.
So I had both of those feet surgically fixed in 2018.
Oh my gosh.
And ever since those surgeries, I've been experiencing calf pain, cramping.
Do you wear compression?
I do wear compression on the longer sessions,
Yeah.
and I am definitely considering it. I don't know. I may have them
Why wouldn't
for
you?
Ironman.
Why wouldn't you do an Ironman with it?
Why wouldn't I?
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of people race with compression.
I don't typically race with it.
Okay.
So, I most of my compression socks are socks, and I don't like running in those. But I just recently invested in the ones that are just over the calf and aren't on the foot, so I can actually wear the sock I like in my shoe.
There you go.
So I think I'm more, and I'm starting to run with those more, and I do like the way that it feels better. I just feel like I have a little bit of extra support in my calves.
Right.
Where I'm getting the cramping though is not running or cycling so much. It's in the pool that my calves are cramping up, and you can't do much.
That hurts.
No,
I get cramps too.
It's a lot of flexing the foot and trying to get it to stop.
Right.
And my kick starts getting really bad, and the poolside coach will be like, "You got to increase your kick," and I'm like, "It's cramping. I can't."
Oh my gosh! What about the danger of falling? And you talked about that must be a factor you have to consider.
That is a huge risk.
Yeah.
That is a very huge risk, and I've actually had doctors throughout my journey tell me you need to stop riding the bike.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing Xterra is not something you want to mess with.
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, just from the...
Even mountain biking terrifies me.
Yeah.
Like, any of that kind of... I've recently started trail running, and I love it. But when I go down a trail, that's definitely in the back of my mind. I'm like, please don't misstep. Please don't. I mean, I'm sure anybody does that, but to me, it can be very bad.
Well, especially if you hit your head.
Hit my head. I actually did a 14er while on blood thinners, and I tripped coming down. Oh. And I hit my shin, and by the time I got down to the car, it looked like I had 2 knees.
Really?
Just from the amount of bleeding internally that I had.
Wow.
Didn't break the skin, but it was all... So I just had this massive hematoma, and that is definitely... hematomas can become serious if they start... compression syndrome.
Okay. Where they burst your skin, basically.
Yeah. So so there's a lot of complications that can happen with it. So I have to be very careful. Obviously, in training rides, if I am not on the trainer, which I would say like 90% of my training on the bike has been on the trainer, I feel safer. I don't have to deal with traffic.
Yep.
I don't have the risk of getting hit by a car.
Yeah. What do you use for training?
I have a Oahu kicker.
And do you do Zwift and all that sort of thing?
I haven't this season.
But you have done it?
I have in the past, yeah. And it was fun.
Yeah.
I had fun with it.
Yeah, that's cool.
I just been watching a lot of Hulu.
Well, gosh, that's so amazing. I mean, there's so much we could unpack here because, one of the things you mentioned at the last call that kind of struck me too is that you're on this weight loss journey. I don't know what your goal is, but you kind of put it on status quo just so you could stay in the Athena category.
I did.
Which is just funny to me that...
I registered as an Athena, and when I registered, I was still like in the 190s.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 180s.
So you've lost a lot of weight pretty fast.
Yeah, and so I did these last 2 races. I did Oktoberfest the weekend before, and then the last call.
As an Athena.
Both were as an Athena, but right before Oktoberfest, I was hitting the high 160s, and I was like, oh no. If I get below 165, I'm out. And so I was like, well, I could stall my weight weight loss journey for a couple weeks just so I can finish out this season as an Athena.
Oh my gosh.
And so I did, and ironically 2 days before the last call, I woke up and I was 164.
Oh.
And I was like, oh no!
Do they weigh you? I mean...
I have been weighed before, but not every time.
Yeah.
Mostly not.
It's on an honor system.
It is, but I don't...
I mean, obviously you want to...
My integrity is there.
Sure.
You know, I didn't want to race.
But 164 one day, 165, and I mean, that's so, like, it can vary so much in a day, right?
I went and ate foods I don't normally eat. I had biscuits and gravy that morning.
Oh my God, that's funny.
I had Chick-fil-A that
Chuck
for
a gallon of
lunch.
water just to...
Yeah. And I woke up race morning, I was 165.6.
Oh my gosh.
So I was an Athena. So.
Oh my gosh. And now are you starting to are you back on the weight loss?
Yeah.
Okay.
As soon as that race was over, I was like, all right, back on track.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I had a really great season this year. I'm hoping to top that off with my first Ironman finish.
That's awesome.
In Florida.
And you did Milwaukee. You did national age group nationals.
I did.
And not as an Athena, right?
No, they don't have that option.
Yeah, so that's awesome. You qualified for that in Georgia, you said, right? Or you were living in Georgia.
I was living in Georgia. I actually had raced last year. I know a lot of people weren't fortunate enough to get to race in 2020.
Right.
I did a couple races in Georgia. I lived in Northwest Georgia, so I did
Chattanooga.
1 or 2 races in Tennessee.
Okay,
I went over and did a race in Alabama.
Right.
So it was kind of fun to get to race in a different part of the country last year.
That's a beautiful area.
It was very beautiful. Very hilly, though.
Yeah, it's very hilly.
I'm not very strong on the bike, so the hills definitely got me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it was fun. I just enjoyed the scenery, and I think it rained at almost every race.
So we're just triathlon, shifting gears a little bit. Where's triathlon in the hierarchy of importance in your life?
Well, see, I have a dog, and I have my family, but I don't have a significant other, so I'd say it's pretty high.
But I mean, it's super important to you, right?
It is.
I mean, is it the motivation? Is it it keeps you going? What is it about triathlon that you find just so important?
Honestly, it's going back to almost losing my life, and the doctors telling me that you becoming active and doing specifically endurance training is what saved my life. So for me, I feel like whether I'm training for an Ironman or another Ride the Rockies or some other crazy, who knows, endurance event,
right.
I think endurance will always be a part of my life in some form or fashion. I love it. I love the endorphins that you get from training and from racing. I love the community.
Right.
And I love just knowing that I'm doing everything I can to ensure that I have a long, happy life.
What do you think you're going to feel like when you cross the line at Ironman Florida?
My whole family will tell you I am the crier of the family. I cried at nationals.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to cry when I cross that finish line too.
Yeah.
I have been dreaming of what that's going to feel like since probably 2016 when I decided that I was finally going to chase after a full. And I don't even know. I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm all of it right now.
Well, let's do this. If you would promise to come back and talk to me about it after the race.
After the race, I would love to.
Okay.
Unless I DNF, but that's not going to happen
Right,
this
that's
time.
not going to happen. Well, let's wrap with that. Let's
Perfect.
wrap with that, and let's tell the folks. Hopefully, you're coming back on with some really great.
I'll be back.
Good
I'll
news.
wear my medal
There you
proudly.
go. All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being on Garage Talk. It was super nice, and thanks for sharing some really personal things. And best of luck in Florida.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to raise awareness.
Yeah.
I mean, blood clots can happen to anybody.
Yep.
So it's important to know your body and don't give up fighting for yourself if you think something's wrong.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thanks.